There's a common challenge that we all face in the middle of a creative project. When we're down in the weeds, dealing with all of the nitty-gritty details, making sense of all of the individual components of whatever it is that you're working on, hopefully without losing sight of the big picture. Now, the type of projects that we talk about on this channel are visual thinking projects, where we're dealing with some interesting information, and our task is to sketch out the ideas that we're working with, to create a drawing or a diagram to help us understand those ideas and act on them in one way or another. Could be ideas that you're learning from a book that you're reading, could be processing some sort of challenging situation at work, or maybe you're preparing a presentation for your colleagues or your students, taking ideas that you understand and find to be valuable and figuring out a way to share those ideas with others in a way that sticks. In that process of visualizing interesting ideas, it's easy to lose your momentum. But I want to help with that. I want to help you maintain your momentum in the midst of an interesting visual thinking project so that you can actually move that project forward instead of it getting stuck in place, so that you can complete it and so that it has the opportunity to achieve the intended impact, to help you learn something new, solve a complex problem, or share some interesting ideas with others. And here we're looking at a specific stage of the sketch it out process that I've described in a previous video that involves defining your purpose, collecting the pieces, and ultimately solving the puzzle. This is the general progression that we go through when doing visual thinking work. And the place that's easy to get stuck is when you're collecting the pieces. This is where it's easy to get stuck in the weeds and lose track of what you're ultimately trying to do here. So in this video, I'm going to share 4 specific tips to help you maintain momentum throughout your visual thinking project so that you don't get stuck, so that you keep this wheel moving, making marks along the way. The first thing I want to point out, as you're gathering these pieces, there are 2 things worth paying attention to: relevance and resonance. When I talk about relevance, what I mean is keeping in mind your purpose, your reason for working with these ideas in the first place, and capturing anything that's relevant to that purpose. That's what will help you understand which sections of a book to underline, for example. These are 2 books that we're reading right now within my Sketch Instinct program. I'll come back to those later and show you some of my notes. When you know your purpose for reading one of those books, you know which sections to underline. But you might realize that you have an emotional reaction to some stories or some key ideas that aren't necessarily relevant to your purpose, but that do deeply resonate with you for one reason or another. And I think that's worth capturing as well, because emotional resonance is an indicator that there's something interesting going on, something worth exploring. So relevance and resonance help you decide what to even capture on the page. The next 2 pieces have to do with how you capture those. And my encouragement is to make use of short phrases as opposed to full excerpts. You don't have to capture everything in a full quote. Look for those key terms and at most short phrases that best summarize the ideas. Don't get stuck dictating word for word too much of whatever it is that you're working with. Transcription is not a helpful note-taking technique. Synthesis and summation is. Similarly, I encourage you to make use of quick sketches as opposed to full-on illustrations. Visual thinking is not about making art. It's about capturing ideas in a visual way that helps you to work with those ideas. So yes, do some drawing. Capture the stories that you're hearing with stick figures and simple scenes and icons, but don't get lost in the drawing. Don't worry about making that drawing look good, because that's what will keep this wheel from moving. And in both these cases of capturing short phrases and making quick sketches, don't be precious about it. Don't worry about getting your spelling right. Don't worry if your stick figure looks a little bit off. Don't take yourself too seriously. Because remember, at this stage, we're just collecting the pieces. We're not even yet worrying about solving the puzzle. Our first task is just to get everything down so that you know what you're working with. And the reason I chose this wagon wheel with pencils for the spokes is to show this kind of back and forth between doing a quick sketch, exploring the next set of ideas, doing the quick sketch, exploring the next set of ideas, another quick sketch, so that this wheel can keep turning and keep moving. What it doesn't look like is taking one visual, one of the pieces you're collecting, and just hammering it in over and over. This isn't going to get you anywhere. We don't want to get stuck. We want to keep moving. Once you've collected all the pieces and start to play around with how they fit together into a cohesive drawing or diagram, a single model that allows you to solve the puzzle, that might be a time when you start hammering into one particular visual framework. But don't try to do that at this stage of the process, because if you do, you might miss out on relevant or resonant details that you haven't gotten to yet. Now let's come back to these two books here, and I will show you what some of my notes have looked like. For these, what I've been doing is reading and underlining one chapter, then creating a super rough summary of that chapter that looks something like this. My goal with these chapter summaries here is to collect these pieces, to pull out some of the interesting stories, like the metaphor of a sea sponge, a profile of Melody Hobson, who is one of Time's 100 most influential people, the mentorship of Bill Bradley, what absorptive capacity is all about, what's the difference between critics and cheerleaders and coaches, what sources to trust, so that you can build this particular character habit that will allow you to achieve greater things. I'm not worried about drawing a sea sponge that actually looks like a sea sponge. I don't even know what Melody Hobson looks like yet. And I don't even know which of these specific ideas will ultimately make it into the final visual summary of this book. But I now have the pieces of this chapter captured in a way that's relevant and resonant to me, which gives me the confidence now to move on with this book, go read the next chapter, sketch that out, so that by the time I'm done reading this book, I will have the pieces that I need in these chapter summaries here to look back on and review and decide which of them I want to hammer down on in the creation of a more synthesized visual summary of that book. So my encouragement here is for you to not get bogged down in the middle of a visual thinking project by caring too much about what your initial sketches look like. Instead, focus on building and maintaining momentum by using relevance and resonance as your filters, capturing short phrases, making quick sketches, and not being precious about whatever happens to make it onto the page. Don't get stuck there, because you've got more meaningful ideas to get to, and you've got people that are waiting to benefit from your work, even if that person is just future you. For more resources on building your visual thinking skills and to join the Sketch Instinct program, if you'd like to read those two books along with us, sketch out the ideas, share how you're going to apply them to your life, go check out verbaltovisual.com. Thank you for watching this video. Good luck finding your own momentum with whatever project you're engaged in right now, and I'll see you again in the next video. Till then.